Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Fayette County School Corporation Board of School Trustees Business Meeting. It is 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, August 8th, and we are here at the Admin Building. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'd like to begin by seeking a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended. Thank you, Jeremy. Do I hear a second?
Second, yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comments on agenda items? Seeing none. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from the regular business meeting and public work session of 7/11/23. Personnel report, which includes retirements, resignations, leave of absence, etc., and the approval of the July 2023 claims 65485 to 65667. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so move.
Okay, Ann?
Second.
Thank you, Ryan. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we will move on to the action items. Personnel report, Mr. Harris.
Good evening. It's not by choice, but get ready for a little bit of Mr. Harris. First,
Oh yeah, this is the Mr. Harris show.
yeah, it's a long one tonight, but we'll see how quick we go.
Thanks for the warning.
Revised agenda, and I think this is at least the third and maybe the fourth time on it. As you look down through here, it's a little harder to see them, but you'll see some of the names that they've been highlighted. Those are the ones that simply were added to this version of the agenda. I mean, there's nothing else unique about them other than those are the ones that we last did. Since Friday, we have added three or four more, which created this list. So this is up to date as of 4 o'clock this afternoon. I'm recommending for employment under certified staff, Matt Colvin, elementary at Eastview, Alexa Crutchfield, math teacher at the high school, Lindsay Dillon, health teacher at Spartan Learning Center, Anthony Durich as student accountability and data coordinator at the Career Center, Maureen Flynn as guidance counselor at the middle school, Renee Hensley, elementary teacher at Everton, Myra Heisel as fax teacher at the high school, Haley Hutzel, kindergarten teacher at Grandview, Brian Klein, PE health teacher at the middle school, Miranda Ladd, English teacher at the middle school, Zachary Lucas, science teacher at the high school, Morgan Mack as social studies teacher at the middle school, Mary Marshall, elementary teacher at Frazee, Elizabeth Martin, English teacher at the high school, Kirsten Russell, elementary teacher at Everton. Then on classified staff, Alexis Briscoe, special ed assistant at the high school, Savannah Collins, special ed assistant at the high school, Carla Daniels, education assistant at Eastview, Callie Dorfline, Title I assistant at Fayette Central, Keisha Howe, special ed assistant at the high school, Laura Locke, student success coach at Frazee, Jessica Markham, education assistant at the middle school, Jordan McQueen, education assistant at the middle school, Laura Murphy, bus driver, Nicole Reed, bus aide, Robert Reed, bus driver, Kelsey Weber, special ed assistant at the high school, Alexis Willis, nutrition bus assistant at Little Spartan, Mackenzie Wilson, permanent sub at Eastview. Did I say Wilson? Alexa Willis. I think I misread that one. Taylor Wilson, Title I education assistant at Little Spartan. Then moving to extracurricular recommendations under certified staff, Jeff Cooley as the freshman boys basketball coach. Under classified, Taylor Browning, freshman girls basketball. David Ellis, 7th grade baseball coach. Brian Flanagan, freshman football coach. Quentin Jones, varsity girls swim coach. Quentin Jones is assistant swim coach in the middle school. Andrew Neely, assistant football coach at the middle school. Dennis Perkins, I kind of question this recommendation, but as assistant track coach at the high school, and he will be paid for that.
We love you, Dennis, if you're listening.
Yes, thank you.
Brett Snyder is assistant football coach at the middle school, and James Stevens is assistant football coach at the middle school.
Can you tell me is this a new position, the Student Accountability Data Coordinator at WCC?
No, it isn't. We've had that for
Oh, okay.
3 years, I think. Is that okay? Yes.
We kind of morphed into it, probably 4 for the position, 3 for the current title, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that sound right, Scott, somewhere around there?
This is the 4th year.
Yeah.
Matt Davis was in that, and he took an administrative position in his hometown.
Okay, okay,
So-
yeah, just wondered, I hadn't seen that, I guess,
For a
because,
long time.
yeah, that's the first time someone after the original hire, so.
Okay, Randy, we're good, we have all our positions filled.
At this time, I mean, if I had any comment to make, we have all teaching positions. We have instructional assistants, some of that's still out there, but we're in excellent condition. I cannot thank the principals, Ms. Casaro, who is not here tonight, Mr. Collins, everybody. I mean, it has been a team effort getting people from all places, and I think ultimately where we're at tonight, we've got a really diverse group. We have, looking around the room, we have a couple of African Americans that we were able to find and hire. We have some hometown people, some that have came from out of town. We've got, I'm really, really pleased. It's not what we would have seen 20 years ago, where people just graduated from college and we hired them, and but it's been a team effort. I told Scott earlier this evening, I said, I don't know how many school districts don't have any openings on the first day of school. And it might, hope it doesn't change tonight or tomorrow morning, but and there are a couple that are going to be open right now because other school districts can't hold them for 30 days. So we have 2 different people, I believe, that will not be here for 30 days. So not all of them will be in their classroom tomorrow, but they will be here before Labor Day.
I just participated in a school board president roundtable for our region and another region, and there were only 5 of us on the call, but the other 4 were all from Donut. It was, it was actually Fort Wayne's area, so it was that, not really the Donut. So, but a populated area. All of them were missing teachers. All of them had an excess of 6 to 10 that they hadn't filled, and this was just last Wednesday. So we are in a pretty good position.
And with bus drivers too, I want to thank Daryl and his team, because we are fully staffed in our bus drivers, which is, that's not common either, so.
We're attracting local people. Made me feel very, very old today when I'm looking up there, some of the new hires were at one point in time in my classroom. And it made me feel old, and it also made me feel very good that they would be willing to come back home and be a part of the Fayette County School Corporation.
How many teachers on the list are not certified in the subject matter?
All of them have at least emergency license, but going back to our old days of, graduating with a social studies major or whatever it may be, I don't know the exact number. I would guess altogether there's, I think, about 30 people on this list. I would guess probably 8 or 10 of those are probably on emergency license.
Yeah, we have about 30 new teachers total this year. And when we say that, a lot of times it's, for example, there's one CHS grad who has her degree in that subject area, but not in teaching, so she has to do the transition that I think that we just hired. So that seems to be the case a lot of times where they have that degree, but they don't have the subject.
That can be a good thing though, if they got it in that subject area,
That's
they
it.
have the passion for the subject, and I think that makes for a better teacher.
He's kind of in the interview and talked to them too, is, they have that passion for it. We have 2 or 3 CHS grads who we hired this year who are younger, who all have degrees in the content areas, but not the license, so.
And they'll have great support at high school in their departments too, and mentor teachers, so that'll be huge. But, we got a lot of great people this year, a lot of great hires.
All right, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the personnel report.
I will be abstaining from voting on the personnel report.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, and any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, we'll go on to the CHS baseball diamond, Mr. Harris.
Okay, I'm not going to add a lot to this one simply because we did have, I thought, a pretty thorough discussion last month, but I am recommending that, we had a bid back on June the 2nd. We received 2 bids for the project. I'm recommending that Turf Dogs, who provided the low bid of $898,610, be awarded the bid to put in a new baseball diamond.
Okay, and we discussed this last time. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the CHS baseball diamond.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ryan. Any discussion? I'm just going to say, I asked a lot of questions last time because the dollar figure is a lot. And just after hearing all the discussion last time, I'm going to vote for it because I think, no pun intended, but we need to level the playing field in terms of all of our kids. I don't care if they're athletics, academics, that they all need to be given equal opportunities. And that just came through. Knowing that we have a healthy account, that this money was allocated, that this has been discussed for quite some time now without actually coming to a bid and a vote. I believe it's been well thought, and it is a big chunk of money. I know that our kids have done without for many years. Many of our kids in sports have not had the best facilities, have not had everything that they, because for whatever past administrations, we didn't have the money, we didn't put the money in there. And, I had some calls from people who expressed that that was a concern. A lot of kids did without it before. They, what's the big deal, they can do without. That isn't a mantra that I want to adhere to. I don't think that just because we got by and things weren't great in the past, that means that we can just continue. I feel like if we can do it, we need to provide the best for our kids. So I just wanted to clarify, since I spoke up out of concern at our last meeting. So, okay, we've already had a motion. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we'll move on to the classified salary changes. Mr. Harris.
Okay, I'm making a number of recommendations here on salary changes, and it's a little bit complicated, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. What I'm recommending is that all classified staff, so hourly people, would receive a pay increase up to 75 cents per hour based on the proposed pay schedule that I attached. So most will receive 75 cents an hour. But in order to be competitive truly, as I describe it with the teachers, we're competing against Rush County, Fayette County, Wayne County. With classified staff, we're competing here in town. We're competing with Hardee's, Walmart, McDonald's, the law office, the insurance office. And in order to make a dent there, I guess, I am recommending a minimum pay for classified staff of $14 per hour. So what that's going to do is, right now our minimum is $12.55 an hour. So anybody at that level, the 75 cents would have simply taken them to $13.25. I'm proposing that we take that to $14. So if you added the 75 cents and it came to $13.90, it went up to 14. If it went up to $13.25, it went up to 14. But anybody $14 or over, it was that 75 cents. So that's where I'm putting the minimum classified salary at $14. I'm also recommending that classified subpay be raised to $12 an hour. We have sometimes custodians, sometimes instructional assistants, sometimes secretaries, multiple things that we have that are classified that occasionally we have subs in those, but that's been $10 in the past. I'm recommending it go to $12 per hour. I'm recommending an increase of substitute teacher pay of $5 per hour. So that would take someone with a high school diploma or an HSE, would take them up to $80 an hour. If they have a bachelor's degree or military service, raise it to $90 an hour.
That's per day.
Or per day, yeah, not per hour, no.
I'm resigning and starting.
Per day. Oh, and retired teachers, $105 per day. The total cost of all of these increases would be approximately $250,000, and I'm proposing that the increases be retroactive to July 1. Obviously, a lot of instructional assistants, most of those, they are just starting tomorrow, but we have the maintenance, custodial, technology, and all of those secretaries in this office going back to July 1.
Are health assistants in the
Yes.
classified staff?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the classified salary changes.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion?
We're gonna finally be competitive. A kid can start at $13 an hour at Walmart and stock shelves. It's a little embarrassing not to have that. And a sub pay, they're desperate for subs all over. When I get emails from surrounding counties wanting to know if I will be willing to sub for up to $125 a day, I'm not gonna do it. But we have to be competitive because there just aren't that many subs around, and we need travel. With travel time, we're now a lot more competitive.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On with the Mr. Harris show for Whitewater Adult Ed salary change.
The next one kind of falls under me, but it doesn't all together. But we also have an agreement with the Whitewater Adult Education. The coordinator there is Pasha Ferris, and she is recommending pay increases for the teachers at Whitewater, as you see attached. And they have a separate grant outside of the normal school funds. They have the grant money to provide for this, so I would recommend approval of this pay increase.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the Whitewater Adult Ed salary changes. Thank you, Jeremy. A second. Thank you, Ryan. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Permission to advertise for the 2024 budget and hearings, Mr. Harris.
Just a preview, not only tonight, you're going to hear from me a lot the next month and all that as we go through the budget process, but I'm requesting permission from the board to advertise the hearing information related to our capital projects plan and bus replacement plan. They are no longer required to be published in the local newspaper, but these plans will be available for public review via our corporation website. And then recommending on September the 12th, our next regular board meeting, there will be a public hearing on the funds and the budget, and then anticipate approval for the budget on our meeting of October the 10th, and seek approval for those dates.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve permission to advertise for the 2024 budget plans and hearing. Thank you, Chris.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Affirmation of the 2024 Support Staff Employee of the Year, Mr. Harris.
This was one, and we were maybe in a unique position being down front, but I had contacted a teacher on who won this award a week or two ago, and I said, I need her to be there, and I need this to be a secret. Can you have her there at 7:45? I will tell you that the recipient of this honor, Jeannie Davidson, was totally shocked and caught off guard. Give Kim Shirk the credit of keeping the surprise. But it is my honor to notify the board trustees that Jeannie Davis, special education paraprofessional at Eastview Elementary School, has been named as the Fayette County Support Staff Employee of the Year for 2024. Jeannie has worked for the school district over 35 years. She's worked in multiple settings, including life skills, classroom, resource room, and one-to-one assistant. Jeannie has worked with students in K through 6. She is loved by students and teachers alike. Her daily schedule may be changed based on the needs of the building, and she rolls with the changes and does whatever is necessary to help. In addition to Jeannie, there were many other district employees nominated for the recommendation, and it is my pleasure to work with so many of those outstanding employees.
Thank you for that. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the affirmation of the 2024 Support Staff Employee of the Year.
Okay, so moved.
Thank you, Ann.
I'll second.
Thanks, Lori. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Creation of the Student Employee Program. Mr. Harris.
This one is truly coming from me. For a long time, I've believed that we as a school district need to support our students in ways not just what we provide in the classroom. But that is the fact that we have many students that go out of what we call part of the ICE program. They go out and they work at businesses throughout town. We have over 70 students, I believe, signed up for ICE program this year. And we, for a long, long time, have asked local businesses to hire our students or to provide them job skills during the school year. So they usually have 2 to 3 hours during the day that they have jobs throughout town. But especially now that we are the largest employer in Fayette County, what I'm requesting is approval from the school board to create a student employment program beginning with this school year for the purpose of creating job opportunities for students to gain those skills as part of their high school experience. The program would provide students experience such categories as educational assistance, custodial help, yard maintenance, clerical, and other positions throughout the district which may be appropriate. They would generally work 2 to 3 hours per day. I put their pay at $10 per hour and request approval to hire up to 10. So we may have 1, we may have 10, I don't know what we'll have, but so.
Great.
Yeah. Some of the kids that would like to ice out simply don't have the transportation. And this would give them the opportunity. There was a program like this many, many years ago at the Career Center where Harold Steele had a program very similar that taught young people custodial kinds of things, and it was a regular classroom setting, and it worked incredibly well. It's been probably 30 years ago. But, you know, if we're going to be the biggest employer, and let's face it, there's always something that can be done. And these kids would earn their keep. An aide doesn't show up, you need an aide in the classroom, you've got somebody that can go in there. And I think that just the overall family experience that it would create on so many levels, I think would be good for the high school kids to do. They make a little money, and you don't have to worry about transportation, and it's right there during the school day. So I think that's a really, really, really good idea. Thank you.
How are the kids going to get the word about the program? How are they going to find out about it?
We'll work through the guidance counselors. I mean, I will tell you, almost every year, we end up with some student that we hear somebody wants to do it, they can't find a job, or they had one and it fell through or whatever. So we'll be working through the high school and the guidance counselors there to look at that. And some of it I can already tell you, I know if I won't mention her name, but one principal's already said, there's somebody that is really interested in going into education, and we could use her as an educational assistant in our building. Would I be able to hire her? So I think some of it's going to come from some of our building principals and teachers going, I can use somebody in my classroom.
Sounds good.
Great program, Randy.
Yeah. That's a
Great.
like to see.
And you get paid.
What?
Back in the day when you didn't have anything to do, when you were in high school, they put you in a classroom and said, here, do this, and we did not get paid to do that.
Right.
Just kept us out of trouble instead of going to study hall. long time ago. Yeah, that's great.
I'd like to seek a motion to approve the creation of a student employee program.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lori. A second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of to purchase bus radios.
The next one, we've done some changing already with our radios in the school district, and in each building we purchased some radios back earlier in the spring. But what I'm requesting now is permission to order 40 bus radios to upgrade our school bus fleet. The new radios will be UHF 45 watts, 512 channels, purchased from JES and Sons. And the total cost of the radios will be $48,271.73. And this is one, it provides us we've never been able to totally communicate with buses at the far south end of the district and the far north end of the district. We have no doubt these radios are going to allow us to communicate throughout the entire county. It's also going to allow the buses to communicate directly with the building. And in fact, from what we hear, we might even be able to communicate with these buses even on trips like to Indianapolis and parts much further away than just Fayette County. So we think this is going to give us a lot better communication. If we'd have any, whether a bus breaks down, whether there's a safety problem on the bus, whatever it may be, we're looking forward to this.
Randy, the range must be pretty good then on these handheld.
Yes, it is. And also, as part of the earlier phase when we did it, to put a lot of repeater at the high school, which also was already assisting. But what we had before, we couldn't even, with a radio, we couldn't communicate, say, from Everton to the high school, and we sure couldn't get between Everton and Fayette Central. So now we're going to be able to have truly countywide communications, and I think it'll really help.
Chris, I spoke to Mount Vernon about these, they have them, and they can talk to the Ohio state line.
Wow.
Awesome. So I mean, it's going to help, and it's going to add another repeater.
How many channels does it?
It'll have 9 or 10, I don't remember exactly how many, but we need the main 4 is what we need.
Next.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd like to seek a motion to approve the purchase of bus radios.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Ryan. A second? Thank you, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Bus driver field trip pay, Mr. Harris.
Next increase I'm requesting is increase the bus driver pay on field trips. Currently, they're paid $15 an hour while they're driving and $10 an hour while they're sitting at an event. I'm recommending an increase there to $20 per hour for drive time and $12.50 per hour for layover time. And this increase would begin with August the 1st.
I like that. All right. I'd like to seek a motion for
I
the
got a
bus driver.
question.
Oh, yeah.
Probably Daryl, hang on, got a little vapor lot going on. Are we having trouble getting people to drive for extracurriculars?
We are, because when we first came in, it was $12.50 and $7.25, and they're making progress, but I mean, we're getting to where the other schools are now. So yes, we have, and they're like, why would I want to do that? I take an hour lunch and it takes a whole hour to pay for that. So it's getting tougher, but this will help.
Thank you.
All right. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the bus driver field trip pay.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Mark. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then next one, Mr. Collins, the resolution.
Thank you. This is Resolution 2023-2. So it's our second one. It's hard to believe that we've only had a couple in this calendar year, but our athletic department had booked for a homecoming football game, Speedway. And that's a good opponent for us at homecoming for a couple of reasons. But problem is Speedway doesn't have buses. So they contacted us asking us if we might be able to help provide bus service, and they would pay us to send 2 buses, I believe, up to the town of Speedway, deliver them back here, and then deliver them back home September
15th, I think, or something.
22nd.
22nd, I think it's in
22nd.
here. So, anyway, I talked to our attorney, and she said that she's done this for other districts, but we do need board approval, because these are buses purchased for our school community. So this resolution just covers that. And the major pieces with it, it doesn't involve more than 200 miles traveled out of state, which we won't, and the person being transported are Indiana residents, which they will be. And the transportation originates from a place within the geographical limits of the school corporation served. So we meet that criteria. So this resolution just authorizes us to provide those buses, and then we will bill them for the cost for those buses. And I guess it's pretty common up there. I'm not sure why they don't own a couple of buses.
I was gonna say, how do they do sports in
that's-
general?
They charter everything.
They charter, they have to charter buses, which is really costly, so.
Or they drive?
Yes,
Yeah.
parents drive the kids on the weekends.
Is that what it is?
Noblesville did the same thing when they came down for basketball last year.
Oh, I
They
didn't know.
don't do any busing on the weekends at all, so the parents are responsible for getting the kids wherever they're going.
Charter buses, $2,600 for them to come down here.
Yeah, that's what they were talking about, $4,600, but maybe it would have been there.
We'll only charge them 45.
That's what it's.
We'll take four. So anyway, it's unusual. They save a lot of money if you think about how much money transportation costs, but it's such a compact, small district that they have some activity buses, I believe, but that's it. So to legally do this and to cover us, that Michelle said we need to do this, so that gives the transportation.
Learn something every day, don't you, Les?
I have no clue.
Exactly.
Yeah. Never heard of that.
So
Yeah.
is
There's no
Andrea
gain
instrumental in
benefit,
asking then?
But I don't know, Dame and Andrea work on the schedule,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah.
Right, well, the next option, because of where the school had already set homecoming,
Yeah.
we would have had to move it later, and then that's Lawrenceburg.
And we
So
don't
those
want
were
large
the
for our
options for
homecoming.
homecoming.
Right.
No, we do not want Lawrenceburg for homecoming, sorry.
All
So
right.
anyway, this seeks your permission
Yes,
for
okay.
Carol to
No,
arrange
Well,
this
good
and take care of it.
question. All right, I'd like to seek a motion for resolution number 2023-02, using FCSC buses to transport the Speedway High School students to extracurricular. Let me check, is it just for Speedway though, or it's for anybody? It doesn't, in the resolution, it does, it's specifically Speedway.
I think it has to be done on a case-by-case basis.
It's specifically just Speedway,
This
this
is just for this one-time resolution
Okay.
for Speedway for that night.
Okay.
With their football team, yes.
Okay, I'd like to seek that motion.
Give that motion.
Thank you, Jeremy, a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Ann. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. School board policy waiver of second reading and approval of policy 3.2, 5.1, tag. Administrative powers.
Thank you. We have done this the last few years.
I know.
The state requires the board to approve the teacher appreciation grant policy every year. And there are a couple of changes on this for this year, and so you can see the language has been deleted. But the key pieces of this are you have to have a highly effective or effective rating to receive that on your most recently completed evaluation. You must have been employed on December 1st of the year they receive it, so they have to be employed on December 1st of this year. And then for us to distribute the funds, effective teachers will receive an amount per the state, and then highly effective receive 25% more. The board has traditionally taken the recommendation to go ahead and pay all highly effective and effective the same, and so we make up that cost. A lot of districts don't do that, so that will be something, we would like to continue to do that with our staff. And then we have to pay it out to our teachers within 20 business days after receiving it, usually in December. The first pay be in December or the second, so it's sort of a nice time with
Right before
holidays.
Christmas.
The state's also changed some pieces where we can allocate funds for supplemental awards to stipends with teachers of less than 5 years of service, or teachers who serve as mentors to teachers who have less than 2 years. We are not going to use any of the funds for any of the other pay or stipends at this time, so we'll just continue to pay those as we have. There is a piece with this, with board policy, we have first reading, usually 1 month, second reading the next month, and then approval. But we've done this the last few years where I'm going to ask the board to waive the second reading of this next month, and that'll be a motion and a vote, and then approve the policy in another motion and vote. So that's what I present to you for your consideration.
Okay. So I'd like to seek a motion to approve the school board policy waiver of the second reading for this policy.
I'll give that.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I'll
Second.
second.
Thanks, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now I'd like a motion to approve policy 3.25.1 teacher appreciation grant.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lori. A second.
Second.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we are on to facility proposals, Mr. Collins.
Okay, I've got a couple of documents for you, and we have some gentlemen here again, so Jim, Chris, and Tim, the traveling road show. They love Fayette County.
Right, are you guys gonna do a little dance for us tonight? No.
Half-price tenderloins at Kunkel's. Tenderloin Tuesday at Kunkel's, I'll put that out there if you're hungry a little bit. They like Pizza King awfully well. So.
Oh, okay.
We got hot dogs in the fridge.
Oh.
We have hot dogs.
Cold.
Lots of hot dogs. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start. So at the meeting last month, Mark, I believe, made the comment, and then the board said, give us some recommendation proposals that we can talk about and look at. So that's what I'm doing. So what I've done is I put together several proposals. If you're gonna ask me to tell you which one I think tonight, I will. That's not really my goal with this. It's more of to see if there's some that you say, I don't know. I just wanted you to see some approximate dollars. The gentlemen are here to look at this. These dollars, I'm gonna say, are very rough, so don't hold me to the numbers. And I've tried to look at some creative ways where we could do some things. So the pool is a big issue that's it's gonna need significant work. So the other sheet that Cindy gave you, Tim provided this with some conceptual budget ideas. So if you look at the natatorium, just to do all the fixing and updating is about $5 million of hard cost. We also need to build in up to 25% for other soft costs. So this option really just looks at, let's get the pool fixed, let's pay it off, that bond, as soon as we can, 3 to 4 years. And then in 26 or 27, our middle school will be off the books. The field house will be off the books in 27, and we would have no other debt. So at that point, we would have capacity to take on a significant amount of money. So in theory, this would kick the elementary piece down the road for a couple of years. So, and I will talk about why, the last bullet there, right now, our elementary numbers are looking really good. Our kindergarten numbers are really good. So that's 2 years in a row where we've seen an uptick in our kindergarten enrollment, which is a real positive. Without doing anything with 6th grade, we could not close an elementary right now and absorb the kids into the other 4 schools. We don't have the capacity to do that unless we were to move 6th grade. So I just want to put that out there, something that keep thought. Any comments on this or thoughts?
So this is something we didn't discuss in our last meeting, but this is taking out a bond just for
The pool.
the pool.
Yeah, I had tossed around some ideas with putting some other infrastructure repairs, but since the newest numbers, to do a short-term payoff for this, we're gonna need at least $6 million or maybe a little more to do what needs to be done in the pool with no expansion.
And what's the payoff time on that, would you say?
It would probably, we've gotten some information from Baker Tilly. We think we could pay it off in 3 to 4 years.
Oh, okay, there it is,
Yes,
yes, I didn't
it's
see
a
that,
third bullet.
yeah, okay.
So that would be one option, then we could start pursuing another bond, probably in 26, which would be much more significant. We have some other factors that are iffy right now. Our net assessed value for the county has gone up about 9.8%. So that's back-to-back years where we've seen substantial increases in our assessed valuation. That's a really good thing, we think. We don't know what could happen with another TIF district down the road, so that's always hanging out, what may happen there, but we will see some increases in our funding for our operations fund, our debt service, which is a positive. So that's an option. This is more of a safe option where we get a big project done, we don't take on the huge debt, and we have a little time to figure out where elementary enrollment's going to shake out in the next 2 to 3 years.
And in the meantime, there's no emergency situation right now that says, no, that we have to do all this stuff right now.
Not yet.
Okay, so, yeah, just put things off and see how they shake out.
This is just an option to take care of one of the big projects that we
Okay.
know needs done.
Without putting us in
Too much debt.
too much debt. And then when we have the debt come off, from the gift that keeps on giving in 26 or 27, this is the middle of 23. That's really not all that much time.
Right. So that's an option. And then I think the other piece with that is we would take 1 million from our operations fund to add to that, and maybe a little more than $1 million, but that was sort of a rough estimate. Costs are only going to keep going up as we wait. Proposal 2, I put this out there, and you may question, I thought about, do I really want to do this? But I think it's important. Fayette Central is a large building, and it's got a lot of good pieces with it. Great sized classrooms, really great library, cafeteria. Those spaces are about the best in the district with those pieces. And it has a lot of space. The big elephant in the room on that is water and sewer. So this was just an idea to see if this is something the board would even want us to consider and explore more. We would make a commitment on Fayette Central and to look at what, if you refer back to this sheet here that Tim provided, if we look at the elementary school baselines, you can see that for Fayette Central, to bring it up to what Loper Elementary was, so it would be similar to what they're doing in Shelbyville, it would cost about $6.8 million, plus soft costs, which could be up to 25% more. So, we would take out an $8.5 million bond, pay it off 5 to 6 years, and we would probably have to spend up to $2 million out of our operations fund to take care of water and sewer. That's a given. We're going to have to invest that kind of money if we're going to maintain Fayette Central. I would never recommend putting $8.5 million into a building that doesn't have water and sewer that's going to handle it. But this is, I wanted you to keep this in mind. If we put money into our elementaries, this is what it would cost at this point in today's dollars to bring Fayette Central up to that Shelbyville standard that they're doing with their remodels. Is that a fair way to state, Tim?
Yeah, we've looked at the numbers and, along with Gibraltar, so they've fluctuated a little bit, right? We've come down on some things and whatnot. So yeah, these are the baselines that we recommend to bring it up to speed from a conceptual level. Obviously, we still would have to dig into the construction drawings and things once we got more detail and more into the design, but high level estimating.
And I double checked with Tim on that too. So new lighting, new ceilings, new floor, new cabinetry, remodeled bathrooms, but there would be no new construction. We wouldn't build on conference space or extra bathrooms. It would just be taking the shell of the building and
What's there?
remodeling it and bringing it up to 2023 finishes.
I like to call it a general refreshment.
Right. Yeah, so, and this would also, we could schedule this debt, and I'm waiting on some work. Randy and I are from Brock, our big utility person, but we think we get that paid off 5 to 6 years, and then we would be able to pursue more debt then.
But then we would not, so if we did this option 5 or 6 years before we could
do anything
big in all the other schools.
Well, as debt rolls off, we could probably take on some more. It's all about how you structure that debt.
Right,
And
right.
Baker Tilly, that's what we hire them for, is they can structure things out. So we could take on other debt, but this will be a big chunk that we'd have to carry this out further to more years to be able to take on more debt.
And what about that, what you have shared, that there may be a utilities grant and
Possibly, I haven't talked to Brad Coulter about it lately, but that would be 2025, I think,
before that would be ready, but that is something that.
It's a possibility, there's no guarantee.
Right.
And he said just to run water out to one facility is something they couldn't probably take on. How many people would tie into that? I know there's a housing developer subdivision there that they have some water concerns, so But that's again, we tried water before me. I know that was tried under previous administration, and they had trouble even getting right-of-ways and people to allow them. It ran, and then it was about $250,000.
Is that gonna be a challenge at this point? The right-of-ways, those?
That's something we'd have to work through with them, so there are a lot of unknowns.
Okay.
And so that's why the fourth bullet, I just said that we'll need to determine costs and requirements before we can proceed.
Okay.
So, any questions on that or comments? Okay, proposal 3, moving 6th grade. Kim Crisaro and I walked the building with Brian last week. And we can find 9 classrooms, which is about what we would need for 6th graders next year. It's going to be very disjointed, and I don't think Brian or I would want our 6th graders to be on all 3 floors, because we would do some sort of a co-teaching possibly, or model where you have teams of teachers working together with groups of kids. So we would have to do a lot of shifting around there, moving, displacing classrooms to try to get all of our 6th graders in one area, which I think would be very important. And as we talked with Brian, and that was something, but we could fit them, it would be tight, really tight. And the other is, could we manage it without teaming? Could we do it with teaming still? That's the other big question. Don't know. So, I mean, I'm just putting this out there. That's come up over the last couple of years. I wanted to share where we're at. A rough estimate would be about $500,000 savings per year. If we close 1 elementary, we would not need 5 elementaries if we shifted 230, 240 6th graders out. There will be some significant redistricting to get 40 to 50 kids back out to Everton. I mean, we would be going probably close to the bridge, 5th Street Bridge. I mean, we'd have to take in that whole eastern part of Vine and over to 44, I think. Just, we don't know for sure, but we would have to capture 75 kids probably at least to push out there or more. But it is an option. We would see some significant savings over a 10-year period. We could probably do some work in stages on the natatorium. Maybe not be quite the same as what we would do in one fell swoop, but we would have to rely on operations funds to budget that out and do smaller pieces. And I don't even know what these guys would think about that, but may just be doing tile and, you know, doing it piecemeal rather than doing it all in 1 year. That would be the downside of that. We couldn't do it all out of our operations fund in a 1 or 2 year period probably.
And also, it will not solve our class size disparities in the remaining buildings.
We have class sizes, we have some schools with 16 in classes, and we have some we could have 30, but we capped them. So this won't take care of that. It will still have that. And something we would come to you for is we have to limit our transfers. We have about 200 transfers in the elementary. Out of 1,500 kids, 200 of those aren't going to their home school.
So, well, has Eastview been capped as far as transfers are concerned?
Some grades.
Some grades? Okay.
But it's a nightmare for transportation.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when we're forced transferring now because we closed grade levels. We're trying to keep about 24 in our kindergarten classes. And so we're forced transferring. Cindy knows that's all she deals with. But that's an issue that people don't realize. It's a lot. It's a big piece every year. But our goal would be to balance and fill the remaining 4 buildings. There would be a lot of movement, a lot of redistricting, and we would repurpose the closed building for other programming. And we could find some good options for that, so we don't open it up to the state to give you a charter.
Do we have any sense that if we did something like this, one of the big issues obviously would be transportation costs. How much more would those transportation costs be? Because to offset, clearly whatever we do is an expensive proposition, but if we do one thing to save some money and it's going to cost us a lot more money in the other pocket, then Daryl, what's kind of the sense on that transportation
Just
line?
depends on which one we close. I mean, it would cost a little more, I mean, but I don't know that it would be a lot more than what we think it would be. We have as much trouble with, like he said, as the ones that are going to different schools because they go to different schools, and then we take them to the babysitter, so we end up busing them anyway in that district, which is tough. You know, Eastview's big for that. I bet there's some, I don't know how many transfers are over there, but then we end up busing them home because they have babysitters in that area, so I mean, we still end up transferring them, so.
Yeah.
And this would be bringing those other 4 buildings up to that standard of Shelbyville, just to keep that in mind. So it'd be a refresh, refinishes, but no construction or additions on the other 4 buildings. Any thoughts on that? And I put the asterisk at the bottom, you know, we could possibly have a little more debt capacity where we might be able to capture a couple $1 million or 3 to help pay for the natatorium more quickly. That's just a big if right now. I just wanted to put that out there.
So since you keep going back to the natatorium, you've mentioned it a couple times since we've been on this page. I want to go, because it's a big deal to me. I just want to go ahead and voice an opinion, and then we can move on. But I mean, I get it. I think that $6 million is a lot of money to spend for us to come back in whatever 3 or 4 years and say, okay, now we want to do this. And then it seems to me like that $6 million, in a lot of cases, some of the stuff is infrastructure or whatever, but it seems like, we're going to hear from a lot of people that, why do you want to do something else? We just spent $6 million on this. And long term, I don't think that is what we need. I don't think that fix for the pool is what we need long term. And I understand we could come back to it, but then, like I said, then it seems like that was a lot of money to spend to 3 or 4 years later say, now we're going to bust a lot of that stuff up that we.
Oh, you mean to build onto the pool or build a new one?
Correct.
In my mind, that would get us through the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't be if I'm sitting here in 5 years or 3, I would say we get it to a place where it's going to be a 6-lane pool, but it's updated and all the infrastructure's done. That was my thinking when I put this together.
And be coming back.
Yeah, because initially, I think we had lower estimates of just fixing that cost.
It was around 3.5 initially in our conversations, I think, and
It was. I think we've grown it, understanding, once again, some more of the scope. So obviously, there's a pool pack unit in there. I want us to look at these numbers when we say $5 million. We're giving you a range, not understanding if we're replacing all the tile on the deck and the locker rooms, or it's the parts and pieces that we've tried to take the worst case scenario and give you a number to react to. So it could be less than that if we narrow down the scope once we dive in. So that's kind of what we have for historical, gutter replacement, tile on the pool deck, replacing the filtration system, the air handling unit that services that's kind of what you're getting in that $5 million, kind of an overhaul or refreshment once again in that space.
And that 5 to 6 millions should make the pool good for 20 years.
Correct. I mean, the big 2 or 3-part infrastructure piece is going to be the gutter, the pool unit or pool pack unit, right, that handles all the chlorine, et cetera. And then the filtration system for the actual water. Those will probably be your 3 main infrastructure pieces that are right here.
See, but from my experience, Mark, from having someone who participated, and I was in there a lot, if we just remodel that pool and we don't expand it at all, it's horrible. It's a horrible place to go watch. I mean, there's not room. When we have our invitational, there are just people scattered everywhere. People, the swimmers end up taking all the stands. There's not room to sit. I mean, we're not prepared to be bigger or better than we were 20 years ago in that pool. I mean, it's just not It's just not where it needs to be, in my opinion. And I mean, like I said, you go to an invitational, and all these people come from these other schools that come to our invitational, and I mean, as a person who's went to other schools that were in the same situation, you go there and say, why are they having this invitational? They are not prepared for this. This is not a place where we should be having this.
Daryl, you know, I recall from all my years that when we would go to different pools, let's set aside the natatorium because we know what kind of pool that is. Some schools were known for having fast pools.
Right.
And others weren't. So, and that makes a difference. This was my recollection from coaches telling me, you know, this is a good meet to go to because this is a fast pool. Will this 5 million, 6 million put us there?
It depends on how we're doing the gutters, and I haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
You know, because, I mean, how it drains and how it pushes out. For anybody that doesn't know how swimming works, the fastest kids get in the middle. Because what happens is that it pushes the water out to the slower kids. I mean, that's exactly what happens, you know, so it depends on the gutters and how we keep the temperature of the pool. That's a big thing, you know.
Because that can make a difference from what Ryan's saying about how it's still gonna be, yes, granted, we don't have a lot of space in there, but it would certainly bring it up to a level of some of the other local regional pools that are also not, you know, fantastic.
It would help there, and it will help the club team if they get it all back together for a fast pool. You will get more kids coming in the club team, which will help build our program also.
Also on this one, the disjointed factor of the sixth graders at the middle school having to put, and also the buzzword came into my head, get rid of teaming. I've taught there forever, and I taught pre-teaming and with teaming, and with the kind of kids that we have today, we would pay very dearly not to have teaming in other areas, because teaming is what really helps that age group of kids. And without it, it's disjointed. With it, it just works so much better with the kids. And I know it's more expensive, but it's like the old guy with the oil filter, you pay me now or you pay me later. Because that is such a critical time in kids' lives, that transition between elementary school and high school. And they need more support. I'm sure Keith and Brian will agree with me. They need a lot of support, and the teaming provides that very necessary baseline for support for a lot of these kids. And yes, it's expensive, but again, I think we pay now or pay later.
And that's not a financial comment on the team for me.
Okay, no, I know, but that's what always comes up. Well, teaming, and I've heard this for 30 years since we went to it in 1993. So that for the last 30 years, well, teaming's more expensive. We need more of this, but the investment that we make in the kids is so critical right now, particularly with the groups of kids that we have. We have smaller groups, but sometimes we have needier groups. And middle school is the time, if you don't catch them in middle school, they may not make it the rest of the way, and we can't afford that in our system. And I think we've got a lot of things with the Spartan Learning Center and the like, but that first transition, those 2 years are so important, and teaming just provides such excellent support for the kids that I think we would be very remiss if we could. Other schools have gone away from it. Rushville did, and several others, and they kind of rued the day that they did because of the other issues that come up with that. So.
Scott, can I ask a dumb question? When you get back to these 200 transfers, which is a privilege that we're giving to the parent for their child, why do we have to supply transportation?
When we force transfer them.
I'm sorry?
When we're forcing them.
Oh, okay.
We may have way too many kindergartners at Eastview.
Okay, that's different.
So it's not a volunteer.
So forced transfers, we have to provide busing. But most of these transfers, they have childcare. So the kids they want them at Eastview because that's where their babysitter is, or their
Okay.
daycare program.
So do we not provide transportation if,
If parents want to transfer that, maybe they live at Pleasant View, we have a bunch of kids that really are in the Fayette Central or the Everton district now. And when we redistricted last time, we were counting on those kids. Well, there was enough space in classrooms, and those parents said they would transport them. So
Yeah, that's
those
what
are
I did,
typically
is a
approved if
transport.
there's-
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
So we're only paying if we force them to
If we
be.
force, but we have
Okay.
about 200 total that are transferred.
That's
Some
it,
are,
that's
some are
awesome.
teachers' kids. They want their kids in the school where they work, or staff members' kids. But just
Makes
200
sense.
out of 1,500.
That makes sense.
Aren't in their home schools. But the
Okay.
forced transfers then becomes Daryl's challenge with his
Forced,
team.
okay.
Because we have
But
to
the
provide.
voluntary transfers, if you can get one, then parent has to, like we did back in the
Yes.
day, we would have to provide the parent has
Thank
to
you.
provide the.
Chris, I think what you're asking is if they transfer to Eastview, they gotta get them there.
Right.
But if they leave Eastview and stay in that district for childcare, we transport them. I think is what he's
That's a
asking.
good point. So that happens. The parents will bring them in the morning to school, and then they bus them to the childcare that's, or grandma's house that's in that school district. So we do that as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
but then in that case, are we talking about still
Yeah, that's
forced transfers though, or?
No, those are
No, those are
voluntary transfers.
voluntary.
Forced transfers, we had a situation today where
That's what's a nightmare
a
for the.
5-year-old lives out in
Yeah.
Lionsville,
They didn't do that for us.
and Everton and Eastview are closed. I mean, we're full there, and if Grandview was the closest school, the child was got to get on the bus like 6:15 and get home after 4 for a 5-year-old. So, we talked with Kate, and, we're gonna get that kid in at Eastview, we're just gonna have one more, because we can't do that to a 5-year-old. So that would have been 10 hours almost being gone.
Oh, my.
And so that makes it tough too. And I think people don't realize, because we're a county-wide district, we have 215 square miles. It's a challenge. When you look at Mount Vernon or these other districts,
Speedway.
Yeah.
Speedway.
When I was in Avon, it was like 36 square miles. It was all dense population, so it was easy to run buses there because it was a 6x6 district, mile wide. Here, we have a lot of miles and a lot of ground to cover. And we may have 1 or 2 kids that live up in Benton, up north of Bentonville, and the bus has to run 5-6 miles to pick up a couple of kiddos. So, and Terry's working on that map, so we can see where all the kids are spread out with our registration. So that'll be good use of information too.
Even for the kids that live in town, sometimes they, you get on the bus at 7 o'clock in the morning, and by the time they get to the middle school, for example, they're there by 8 o'clock. So they're riding 50 minutes on the bus to get
4 or 5 miles.
4 or 5 miles. They could walk the way we did on the snow uphill one direction.
Right. So proposal 4, this came up from some discussions with, we had one big city, I forget who mentioned that. So this would look at keeping the 2 county buildings and then creating one big city elementary with 900 students. That means, we would close a couple of buildings, and then we would still want to complete a basic remodel at the 2 county buildings.
Why would you
And-
choose the county buildings?
That came up from somebody's comment.
Okay.
The county buildings are a little tougher because
Okay, I'm
of
just curious.
the distance. It doesn't have to be, I just use those as an example. We could look at any building to build that. They did give us some numbers, Tim did, on the 750 student option and then the 900, and he just picked a random building because of that size. So he picked Frazee, that doesn't mean Frazee would be it, but if we wanted to do the 900 student option, it would be 32 million to build on and make it a 900 student school, plus the soft costs and other things. So, and then, depending on what it came out to, maybe we'd have some money to do some work at the other 2 remaining schools. But we're still gonna have to resolve the water and sewer needs, which probably could be in the million. So we would have one large elementary somewhere. So take the county schools out and this would be an option to do that, or we could do 2 700. I didn't put that option down, but there's prices there to do 750 student schools, which which would be, we would need 2 buildings for that. So they just gave Eastview, Fayette Central, Frazee as those options and what it would cost. So if we wanted to create 2 of those buildings into 750 student options, we're looking at over $50 million for soft costs, which we don't have the capacity to take on that kind of debt. So that's why I didn't put a slide up there. That's not even feasible for us. So we would have a lot of redistricting, and then we would have to repurpose 2 buildings for other programming needs. So take the buildings out of it, it's just, that's an option if we close 2 buildings and make 1 big elementary for that. We'll still have imbalances, we won't have equal class sizes.
So what would it take to make equal class sizes?
2 buildings. Or 1 big building.
I'll tell you, one of my concerns about doing anything similar, if we put a significant amount of funds in I'll call it a new building, realizing we'd probably be adding to some building, but if we put significant resources into 1 building and add on to it with the standards of 2025, and we renovate 2 existing buildings, I think another step's going to be there is you're going to have to say it's closed enrollment in those districts, because if we're taking students and transporting them 5-6 miles to provide enrollment in one of the rural schools, we're going to have people that are within a couple of miles of being that new school, wherever it is. They're going to say, I don't want to go out there for an older building when I can go to the brand new, shining, gleaming, whatever building I want to transfer my kids. If we allow transfers, I think we're going to see a large influx, and then that's going to decrease significantly the enrollments outside of the city, because we're already transporting from the city limits out to gain those populations.
I think you've already nailed it where it says you limit transfers.
That's why I put down that bullet. We would have to.
Well, the problem is if you limit transfers, and we used to do this 30 years ago, it was very difficult to get a transfer. And it was before the days of after-school care. And basically, what we would open up is an alternative program that gives somebody the opportunity for an alternative program where their kid would go to that school, and that could be a disaster. Somebody coming in and saying, look, we're a private school, we're a charter school, whatever. I think that would open up a can of worms.
I think we have that anytime.
Well, I think childcare for young children is just very expensive and very difficult. And I think that sometimes it's underestimated. There was a time in the school corporation when you couldn't get a transfer because you had to have a kid with a babysitter. They weren't going to make the babysitters rich in a certain school district. So they banned all transfers into the Grandview district at that time. And it forced parents to look elsewhere. Baptist Temple was still very viable at that time. Of course, there was St. Gabriel's. There was another Christian school that was there. And we lost student population at that time simply because of the child care issues. Because those things, Baptist Temple and St. Gabe's and the other Christian school provided after-school care. And that was a big problem for working parents. So we kind of overcame that. But in today's society, I don't know that we want to put those issues out there either.
Anything else on this? This is just one option that came from some discussion. I wanted to put something down.
Okay.
This would be a similar type of thing, but moving 6th grade to, move 40 kids out of our elementaries. We could do a smaller one somewhere. I said city, doesn't have to be. We would have one school of 750 and then maintain the other 2 at 300, 350. Somewhere around that. So that would be another option. Financially, it would be more feasible to do a 750 student capacity building one. We could probably get close to a bond amount on that. Doesn't take care of the pool, and it won't resolve all the balanced class sizes still. These models won't.
And still the water and sewer needs attention.
Yeah.
If that stays on.
Yeah, keep that there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to do, and this is just, I don't know if the guys here have any comments. If we want to explore the two schools, I don't think financially we could do that without a referendum. I know we can't. And that would be the next step, is the board wanting to pursue a referendum. It's a big process. I don't know what would happen with it.
Yeah, that's a huge process. I just heard all about it on the roundtable discussion. Schools that have been planning and preparing and in the process, I mean, to do a redistricting, to do, what is the word? Referendum. I mean, you have to vote on it. I mean, these schools have been working on their referendum plans for like a couple of years, and it's all this work we've been doing, and
I mean, it's a process.
it's a big deal.
And
And then they don't always pass.
And then they don't always pass,
And then
so
you're
you're back to square
It's-
one, and you spend a lot of money on the referendum.
It's interesting, though, what districts have. I guess it's a thunderstorm happening.
I just saw that one right out the window. That was-
The first one was on.
Caught me on camera jumping.
We nixed that proposal.
Somebody just said something.
And God said,
No referendum.
yeah,
So, we're gonna get rid of this slide for now. Get rid of that. Wow. But these were I was trying to come up, what are the pool? I guess that's the direction. Do we want to expand? I mean, what I'm hearing Ryan say, we're looking at significant dollars if we're going to take the pool into a 8-lane stretch, reconfigure it, we're looking at $20+ million.
so who's got to make $1 million ticket to it?
I hope I do.
If we
Well,
want-
when we talk about all, just like we voted today on the baseball fields, and, my comment about, I feel like we need to give all our kids equal opportunities. That pool hasn't had any work in 40, I don't know. What? Hasn't had any repairs of any significance.
It needs work.
And it's
It's-
40 years old, is that what it is?
Oh, it's
No,
old.
it's old, I was gonna say it's older in
Well, how
addition.
old is the pool?
65, yeah.
69, as old as the high school.
I mean, there is cracks in the wall where you can feel the air, coming in.
Yeah, it's bad.
It needs work.
It needs work.
I mean, we've done a little work in the locker rooms, I think, over the years, but not much, because I walked in them, they don't look a whole lot different than when my kids swam.
I think we painted and got a scoreboard. I mean, it's,
Yeah, surface stuff, but
After we took the tour, I think most of us were there.
with the
It was
leaks.
obvious, we gotta do something if we're gonna have a pool.
Yeah, with the
Yeah,
leaks,
the first
that
one,
one,
yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. That's obvious. That's
There's-
obvious.
Yeah, it's obvious, but we also got a lot of other things we need to take care of.
well,
The
unfortunately,
classrooms are most important in my eyes.
unfortunately, we've had, everything is getting a little bit older, and it's been very well maintained, but at a certain point in time, it just wears out. And unfortunately, I think we're in that position with a lot of our infrastructure right now.
So, thoughts? I guess I need a little direction, unless there's one idea here that you're ready to go with.
First of all, Scott, I appreciate you
Yeah.
doing what you
Yeah,
did.
this is great.
We needed this. I think everybody would agree, we needed something on paper to look at and study, and, okay, now what do we want to do?
Would you like some time to study and then maybe set up a work session?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
I think that would be good. One of the things, that I'm not suggesting we do this, but, excuse me, I think there's some work between some of the proposals where like looking at proposal 1 and proposal 2. So in proposal 2, we're talking about a bond for 8.5 million. And proposal, approximately, and, right, just what you wrote up there. And proposal 1 is a bond of 5 million. So, I mean, it's possible that we can take out bonds, like I think we need to be looking at our financial structure. We have a GEO bond out now, right?
We'll pay off, yeah, the 1-year payoff, the $1 million one.
Okay, and that was just this past year that we did for
It's
some
still-
high
yeah,
school,
it's
the high
still
school
for the high
stuff.
school.
Right, so we have some other capacities with bonds besides the big possible 30 million, whatever, in a couple of years. Then we've got the field house coming off. We've got GEO bonds that we can do every few years if we pay them off.
We're really at a point where do we want to maximize our bond now and do the 26, 28 million? Or do we want to do smaller projects to keep our debt level? That's really where we need some guidance on. Do we want to do big
Seating and all that.
big remodels on our buildings?
Well, that's why we need that.
Well,
That's why I threw out different options and just some direction on where you're.
also too, you say we have a really good kindergarten enrollment this year. And if that's what makes long-term planning so difficult, because if we have a really good kindergarten this year, is this a trend that we're gonna see, that we'll have more of these kids staying in the system?
2025, the pandemic babies.
Yeah, so,
I mean, projections are, right?
There's so many variables, there as far as our student population is concerned. Also, the assessed valuation, we could potentially get more money for our operations fund. So,
And I have a question about the middle school. You said we could do that. It would be tight. So how tight, meaning what fluctuation in enrollment could it handle with 6th graders being in there?
You know, and one of the things when I talk about the middle school schedule is the encore classes, the non-core classes, we have to have more of those to give the extra prep periods to the core teachers. So that's part of the challenge that's not with the traditional school, is you have to have more of those extra classes to fill the kids' days and to give teachers their extra prep time. That's in a nutshell. That's what I was talking about with teaming, the spaces. We wouldn't need all those encore classes, the extra classes. I will use that. They're all important, but they're not the 4 core: the science, social studies, math, and English. So that's one of the pieces. And Brian, if you have any thoughts, or Keith, about it, I mean, we would have kids all over the building unless we moved a lot of teachers to different areas. And I would rather have our youngest kids segregated in one area rather than the 8th graders. I think that can mess up teaming. You're not gonna be able to keep your teams intact.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
well, and also too, I taught in the 6, 7, and 8 building. The 6th graders were completely segregated from the rest of them. It was like in a pod situation. And there's a humongous difference between a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old on so many levels. So, moving the 6th grade in, we've had one school district that moved them, and now they're moved them back, and in the neighborhood that moved the 6th graders back into the elementary school. So.
It seems like there's all different reasons,
Yeah.
maybe to not move the 6th graders to the middle school. It just seems like just everything. I mean, in my opinion, I think they need to stay put in the elementary. I don't like this, even considering moving them to the middle school. You know, we've mentioned all different things here, and I think it would be best just to leave them in the elementary. I really do.
Well, since we dragged the principal of the middle school into it, what are your feelings?
Well, like Scott said, Kim came to the building, and while we do have some rooms that are empty, there are rooms that are not empty all day. We might use them for some pull-out for some special ed or something like that. So can we find rooms? Yeah, we can, but like he said, it's difficult to find rooms that are gonna, and talking to Chris, I believe, he said, most schools that do a 6, 7, 8 building keep the 6th graders segregated from everybody else, because we have kids that move on the bell, and so there's just a lot of transfer. That's where they kind of learn, the high school routine is in our building, they start moving classrooms. Well, we have to shut the bells off because the sixth graders don't really move around that much. There's just a lot of things. We would have to do a lot of revamping. We'd have a third lunch we would have to bring into it. That many more students, just going to bring more staff in the building. We have some rooms that are available. There are rooms that we still utilize at times for some of those kids that need extra support. So we would just take a lot of revamping, a lot of thinking about what.
And if it did result in no teaming, what's your opinion on that? Is it better to keep teaming, or, you're there.
Teaming provides an extra time for those core teachers to get together, to either bring parents in, talk with them, bring students in, talk with them, call parents, reach out. They do positive things. They do some restorative practice during that time period as well. So
I would say we are continuing to fine tune how we use that teaming period, but I will also tell you that teaming is a recruitment opportunity for us. I can talk to a teacher and I can say, hey, we do teaming, and they go, oh, that's interesting. And they may jump from somewhere that's not doing teaming because they go, oh, okay, I'm gonna have more support, I'm gonna have other teachers that I can work with this student to help that student.
And it also helps administratively in that the teams can operate somewhat within themselves. And if you have a bad mix in a classroom, you have Johnny and Danny over here, they're not getting along at all, and they're going to create a discipline situation, well, you can move them inter-team, and you solve a lot of your problems. They don't have to go to the administrative level. The team level can work through that. And having worked with that age level of kids, to get parents into a middle school is difficult anyway because it's just different than elementary. And it provides support for the kid, an opportunity for the parent, and it just really, really works well. Middle school kids are a hybrid, and they need a lot of support, and their teaming just works better. And it is a calling card to have that extra support in your team with kids. If they're acting in one way in your class and they're not acting one way, they're not acting out in another, you sit down with that other teacher and you say, well, what's going on? Is it time of day? Is it gender? Is it subject material? You can try to find some answers to help smooth the situation for the kid. And you can't do that without teaming.
It's got to like time to look
I wanted to ask one more thing. If we're going to do a special work session, which I think is a great idea, would you have an opportunity to talk to Brad Coulter just about if that grant is really a viable option? And I don't know how, generally when people know about grants, they know the likelihood that an entity would get that grant.
It's good.
And I know we're in the middle of, for our business, applying for some grants, and the grant writer has said, lots of people are getting this, you should have no trouble. So that would be beneficial information, because that's just 2 years out, and 24, 25 you said, and looking at some of these options, it's doing something and then waiting a little bit until 26, 27, till some debt comes off. So that fits right into the timeline, if that is something that we can look at and could reduce some of the fees. Because even the Fayette Central option, we could go ahead and do that, but then we're stuck for a little while before we can do some other activity. That's going to really be timed well with a possible grant. So I want to know how viable that grant would be, because I think...
Well, and that would save us considerable money.
Right.
Lots.
Plus, we started this discussion with Scott telling us basically that our numbers are very solid right now for this year, and our kindergarten numbers are
For
high.
elementary, our buildings are all, Everton's still lower than we'd like, but the others are all pretty steady with where they're at.
One of the other things that we brought up before, I don't think we've seen yet, is population density now.
Yeah. Once we get we still have a couple hundred kids that haven't come in yet. that's what Terry's working on to show us where that's really helpful, and it will be helpful again this time. But the other part I don't want to belabor this, but we're getting to the point where if we're going to do something with the bond, we've also got the timeline crunch to get it done here in '23. That's why I gave the options of doing something smaller and doing a shorter term bond. They're basically kicking it down the road another year or two. But when we do the process with Baker Tilly and Jane Herndon from Ice Miller, the attorney, we pay their set fees. When you look at taking out $1 million versus 5, the fees are pretty much the same. So those fees and all the costs that go with it eat up more of your dollars proportionately. So I don't really want to do just another $1 million bond. I don't think that's fiscally a good idea and I think Randy would agree. We'd like to get something substantial done with this pot of money. And if we're not doing something big, then let's do something we can get paid off and start working down the road next year and the year after on looking harder at the elementaries. That's sort of where I'm at. The natatorium is an easier fix in a way, but we have to decide, do we want to put 20 million? If we do 20 million, we're not going to be able to do the elementaries for a long time. But I get what Ryan's saying too. So
How much can costs go up in 2 years? Let's say we wait till 25 to look at then the work with the elementaries. Well, I mean, we have to wait for that middle school bond to come off, and then we've got the field house money. So how much does pricing increase over that time?
So right now, we still track 8 to 11% on average a year. We have not seen that stop. And in some of these numbers we provided you, and let me look at it real quick before we have some escalation in there. We have a year of escalation in the numbers right now.
Okay.
So, but not 2.
Okay. That's good to know too.
So you build in an 8 to 11%
For the
increase.
Yes.
Already.
Counting on that, right?
Okay.
Okay.
I think we need to commit to having this work session.
And make a
at
decision.
that point.
Well, we have to wait till a
Yeah.
meeting, but yes.
At that point, put something down, this is our date to get something
Yeah.
settled.
If there's any way we can do one before the next meeting?
I'd say really at the September board meeting, we really need to decide
Right,
if
that's
we're going
why.
to proceed with it. We may not have to have all of the details of where we go with the GO bond. We're going to have
Figure
something
out.
more firm by the September meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll share that with somebody may say, why do we have to do anything? Our goal is to keep our debt level, right?
Right.
So we're gonna have this $1 million payment for this $1 million bond roll off. We need to find a way where Baker Tilly can help level that debt out to keep us steady. There's options, we could increase the tax rate by 5 cents or 10. So that's something, they're getting us some numbers on that as well, but, to keep our debt level and our tax rate level, we need to do something this year to do that. So
I think I asked this before and I don't remember the answer. Can you raise tax rates and then lower them? Or you don't want to once you gain ground, you have to keep your tax rate?
You can lower, I mean, legally.
Yeah, but then everybody else.
you'll never get my recommendation for that.
Once you raise it, it's raised, okay, gotcha.
Well, level debt is a good thing, keeping our piece of the pie.
Yes.
But I mean, we talked last meeting about what some of that would look like
It's not a
to
huge.
businesses and
Right.
homeowners and things like that. And, I mean, I don't want to drag anybody else into it, but I talked to one of the other board members after that meeting, and I think we thought it was a great idea. I mean, it's just not that significant, and it would make a very, very significant difference in what we're able to do.
And we should have numbers for you at the work session too, from Baker Tilly, where we can talk through that too with this work session.
I mean, I really think this work session, even, we would have, depending on the night, maybe you have Baker Tilly at the table, I'm kind of looking at these guys too, but have Baker Tilly at the table, as well as Ice Miller, who does the bond counsel.
Tell us all
They would
that.
be willing to either be physically present if they're available, or they could Zoom in. But I think those two entities are getting pretty critical to be here if they can answer that
Yeah,
also.
because we have to make,
Yeah.
we have to make a good fiscal decision, and,
Yeah.
and public entities are a whole different way of doing things.
Well, that's all I have. Is there any direction from you for this work session, what you want us to put together? We'll have the finance stuff and the financials, we should have all that from Baker Tilly. Anything else, or any other options?
Maybe we've got some time to think about it, we can look at our proposals and get with you.
Is that something that Terry will be able to have that?
Oh, the population density by then?
Randy, I'll work with Terry on that, see. We still have kids unaccounted for,
I
I mean, but
understand.
When's our first census? When's our first school census?
October
October 2nd.
2nd.
October, oh, geez.
They moved it.
Well, that's the official, we're gonna have some pretty solid numbers here in the next week.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Typically, right, Mr. Harris?
Typically.
Yeah.
by next Monday, we should have a pretty good idea. And they'll straggle in and out, and we'll get people who have
Well, yeah,
left
when
it.
you have a 3-day weeks.
So, but we should know by early next week where we're at pretty closely.
Well, we could go ahead and pick a date for this meeting, couldn't we? I mean, or you guys have Cindy send it
Yeah,
out?
Cindy will send it out.
Yeah, because
We'll
you'll
work
have
on
to
it.
check with
Sooner
Baker
the
Tilly
better,
and
right?
Ice Miller, yeah, absolutely.
We'll shoot for something in August then.
Yep.
Good deal, thanks.
Okay, next up, public comments. Persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personnel or students may be discussed in private. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Seeing none, superintendent's discussion and group reports, principal director reports. Anybody want to share anything happening?
You guys get a chance, go out and look at the outdoor dining. It's almost finished and it really
Well,
is looking
We
nice.
saw
Ann and I saw it
this
this
morning.
morning. That's the right memo of where we need to be this morning. So.
No.
It's pretty
Yeah, it
good,
looked cool.
so it's not gonna be quite ready for school tomorrow, but we're getting there.
Concrete is out there, and I think there was a table out there or some structure.
There's tables out there,
Yeah.
and they're gonna seal the cement so that we paint a couple things, so we're
Yeah,
gonna be
cool.
in pretty good shape.
I saw it, looks good.
Anybody else, any other principal director reports?
I just want to say we're gearing up for the school year, and everyone's super excited, all the teachers and all the principals are excited to see the students. We had supply drop off tonight, which was, lines out the door.
Wow.
So it was nice, everyone was ready to get into their buildings to meet their teachers, and it was great.
That's cool.
Really want
Love
to
to
check
hear
out
that.
the new principal probably too.
Maybe.
Make sure she's okay.
Director of Operations report.
You just wanted to call on me again, but I
Right.
do have a few things here. Fund report, it continues to go along, but I want to emphasize something. First, thank you on all of the salary proposals, but I want to never forget, at least as long as they keep doing it, anticipated, until we get our numbers in, we don't know where we're at, but right now, we're anticipating a slight decrease in enrollment. If we get that, with what the legislature did back in the spring, we're going to get approximately $1 million new dollars to our baseline budget. Remember what that could have been had they not given so much to the vouchers. Remember how much that also could benefit our teachers if we weren't. I say $1 million, I told you the classified is going to be about $250,000 off of that. Also, there's going to be about $200,000 or a little more than $200,000 off of that to pay for free textbooks for everybody else that the legislature said, we're going to give you free textbooks and we're going to pay for it. They're $200,000 short in Fayette County. So out of that million, over $500,000 of it is going to be taken up in both raises and textbooks. So while the budget looks good, we are pushing as much as we can to provide for our staff and provide for our kids, as well as maintaining the buildings. So any questions on the fund report? The other one you see, just a budget calendar. This one's usually provided here at the August meeting. If you look at the kind of the colored parts of it there on the local timeline, it just shows the steps that we take as we go through the budget process that is anticipated. We will have the budget process completed by our October 10th board meeting. Looking at the state deadlines don't hit until we're about a month in front of the state deadline, so we have to keep pushing that on as far as the budget goes. And then the last item that I have in front of you is, for the last year really, all of the internal transfers that we have done throughout the district. So you can see where an employee is today, where they were prior to that, and all of those kind of things. Where this could be an instructional assistant going from Everton to Grandview. It could be a middle school teacher going from one grade to another. It could be a teacher shifted. So these are just internal transfers that are made at the recommendation of the administrators. We sign off in cabinet, and it covers all of those kind of things. So,
thank you. Kim is out, so Scott.
I just want to thank our teachers and administrators for their work, and it's exciting. I think there's a good vibe in the district, it feels like. I'm ready for tomorrow. I think, Kate, you're not going back to work, are you?
I am.
Okay. We were talking earlier, but I don't think many of us sleep much the night before school starts. There's an excitement there, and so I look forward to getting out in the buildings and seeing our kids. That's what it's about. So don't forget to get the kids in bed and ready to go tomorrow.
Easier said than done.
I know.
I should have spoken up, but the superintendent discussion group report is really for anybody that's part of another group, or if we form committees to report. I did want to share, I participated I'm on the legislative committee. I was on it for 2 years. You're only supposed to do a 2-year stint, but then nobody applied, so they contacted me to see if I want to do it again, and I chose to do that. The big discussion, one of the big discussion items were the vouchers, and I think people need to understand what that entails. So it used to be that vouchers were given to people who wanted their children to attend private schools because the legislature and the governor has really pushed school choice, meaning parents can send their child wherever they want to go. That's the gist of it. When vouchers first came out, I think they were capped at, like, if a family made under 70,000. I can't remember when the first vouchers are, maybe it's 50,000. And that seemed somewhat fitting, okay, I understand that. Somebody wants to send their, not that I'm necessarily, I'm not in favor of vouchers, but somebody wants to send their kid to a private school and the state is offering to pay, it's for families that really need it. That bar has been lifted. What is it, 230,000?
I thought the most interesting thing I ever saw, and this I think came from IFBA, they increased the governor's pay. Now, I'm not blaming it on Governor Holcomb, because it doesn't take place until the next governor takes office. So, but I think the governor's pay in Indiana is going to rise to, I believe, $194,000.
So he's eligible to send
and
his
if the
kids with
governor
vouchers.
had children, the governor would be able to get vouchers to send his or her children to a school using vouchers.
So they've really raised that, and the issue is that voucher schools do not have to jump through all the hoops that public schools. So that public schools do. They do get audited, but they get audited by a private company and not by the State Board of Accounts, and they don't have to publicize the reports where we do. And there's a host of other things, and that's what the legislative committee, they're gonna put together some talking points to try to address that this year. But when you hear vouchers, I just want to be clear that you understand that they're really available. I think the legislature's goal is to make vouchers available to everybody. And that attendance at private school then could be paid for entirely, and with many of those private schools not having to report their data. So that's where the rubber meets the road, or that's where people in public education have such an issue with vouchers. Because also many of those private schools don't take kids with special needs. Public schools take everybody. So you'll often see families that will send some of their kids to private school, but their kids that have special needs, they'll put in the public school. So I'll be reporting back at different points in time about what they're doing. I just wanted to share that because it was a little eye-opening. I hadn't heard the top dollar amount until this meeting, and I was blown away by That's not, it used to be the poverty threshold, which I think was 50,000 at one point for a family of 4 or 5 or whatever. And now it's, there's no limit on children and all that. Anyway, for the good of the cause, anybody want to share anything tonight? Ann and I were able to attend the back-to-school meeting today. And, I actually, once we figured out where it was actually glad that it was in CMS because it was really nice and people were closer together instead of being so spread out, which is a wonderful thing about the CMS auditorium. It's a little smaller and more personal. And wow, lots of new teachers, lots of new faces. I hope lots of excitement. Thrilled to have all these new people in our school corporation.
I would be curious, how did the challenge day go today?
Good.
Good,
Very well.
okay, Keith?
Yeah.
You want to share maybe what you did with the teachers today? Because I don't think the rest of the group knows necessarily.
Every teacher, we had 250 chairs set up in the bowl in 2 circles, an inner circle and an outer circle, and a facilitator led everyone through a 3-hour activity it wasn't the same, it was similar in some ways to the challenge day that we'll be doing at the end of August for our 8th graders, but it was a more adult focused more. We did some of the similar activities, but it was more adult focused about culture and how to be how to help shift that culture. And really, I thought some thought-provoking.
Good opportunity because we were placed in groups, and I was placed in a group of people that I don't really get to see much in the corporation, but it was a nice time to share ideas. And a good way to get together and
Was it? I think we were in like, how many, 35, 45, 40 plus groups of 4 to 6 people from all over the district. So I mean, there were elementary and high school teachers with me. I think we were all in little groups and we all got to share kind of, hey, what are our struggles? What are the things we're nervous about going into this school year? How can we address those things? How can we find other people to help us through those challenges? I think it was a good way to kick off the school year with some reflection and some pieces of, okay, how do I take that next step and be proactive in helping be a change for our culture, continued change for our culture.
And Kim's not here, Leslie, I'll ask you, how was the comfort temperature in the bowl?
I didn't go to that.
Oh, you
It
did?
was cold, I heard from numerous people.
I just walked through
Which was
there a week or
fantastic.
2 ago, and no one was in there, and it was very cold.
Yep.
And I'm not usually complaining about that, but it was very cold in
Well,
there.
I was at the new teacher breakfast, and Coach McCullough said that the first day of summer practice, they were all freezing in there. I mean, it's cold.
I texted Daryl and asked him to turn a couple blowers off.
So cold. I mean, it's good. I'm sure we'll get to that sweet spot at some point, but it's, a big space.
I was thinking if Leslie was in there, she left.
Oh, I would have left. Well, I had my sweater, so I always take that with me wherever I go, because I know if it's gonna be cold, I gotta.
We're still adjusting a little bit.
Okay, any other comments on the good of the cause?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Ryan. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
The hands always go.